Using fire to keep a prairie healthy. Okay. Inside the 40,000-acre tallgrass prairie reserve in northern Oklahoma, herds of bison roam on the scenic land that is home to hundreds of different species of plants and animals. Okay, so we're getting a scene setting in Oklahoma, land where the bison roams. Well, one of the greatest threats to the prairie is wildfire, a problem. The use of controlled fires is actually an effective way to protect this idyllic landscape. Okay, so this is your thesis claim right here at the end of the intro. Controlled fires are an effective way to protect the landscape. So let's look at the body paragraphs. Fires that are started by lightning or other natural circumstances are inevitable, thus the wildfires, and the results can be disastrous. However, contrasting that idea, hundreds of years ago, the American Indian people who inhabited the Great Plains learned or realized that these fires could also be helpful. So not only were they a risk, but they could actually use the fires in a helpful way. The bison in the area seemed to prefer grazing on tender grass in the new areas. So the American Indians began to deliberately burn areas for bison to graze on. So they used it to feed the animals more effectively. Today, now we're jumping forward, conservationists at the tallgrass prairie continue to use controlled burns. Why? For land management now. Okay, so nowadays we use it for land management. It improves the vegetation, it limits overcrowding, and it adds nitrogen, which is essentially fertilizer, to the soil. So we learned that we use it for land management with all these benefits. One common target of controlled burns in paragraph 4 is the cedar tree, the red cedar tree. So a single red cedar tree consumes 40 gallons of water. It takes it away from other plant life. It casts shade, which, destroys, the plants beneath them. And it's a fast-growing, kind of an invasive plant. It crowds out prairie grasses, the primary food source for wild and domestic animals. It crowds out the prairie grass, and that is the food for the animals, okay? So we learn about control burns as a way to get rid of or limit this invasive tree. That's one benefit. Paragraph 5. Of course, these controlled fires are intended to burn only a portion of the area. Well, they're controlled fires, of course. A total burn, which is a risk of uncontrolled wildfire, would destroy all wildlife. The key, so here they're telling it's important, the key to controlled fires is knowing which lands to burn. Experts say they employ the patch burn approach, meaning they rotate which portion of land is burned each year. They study the land to find out which areas would most benefit from burn. Then they arrange about a dozen burns over a third of the land. This patch burning contains the fire within a specific area and allows animals in the burn area to safely relocate. Okay? So they plan around this rotated partial burning, this patch burn method. 6, researchers have tracked and studied the variety of plant species that live on the preserves, and studies show that the patch burn approach has restored biodiversity. It's promoted the growth of species that were at risk before of being crowded out. It's successful, so successful it looks like they taught the farmers. And then we kind of just wrap it up with a concluding sentence, right? So how is this structured? It's an informative essay written third person. It starts off with a scene setting and a thesis claim that controlled fires are a great way to protect the landscape. It talks how we first learned about it. American Indians started it they realized from lightning strikes they could actually create areas that the bison preferred to graze on. Today, it looks like land management, use it to control burns to get various benefits. One common target of those burns is the red cedar tree, so it shows how they cut back on this invasive tree that takes away from plant life and even some of the plants that feed the animals. Paragraph 5 is all about how it has to be controlled. And finally, 6 says studies show this has been very successful. Okay? So we go to the figure, which also has a main idea, and the main idea shows these different sections of unburned, previously burned, and recently burned area, where, as the passage told us, the bison are grazing on the new grass. And the text tells us kind of the aspects of the different areas. Let's go ahead and answer the questions. I think we're ready.